first edition King James Bible that was printed in 1611. So this is over 4 centuries old.
This Bible is like 135 years old.
Police in Turkey have recovered a Bible thought to be 1,000 years old.
Now, this is quite a discovery. Fragments of a biblical scroll.
Turkish authorities have confirmed that an ancient Bible thought to be 1,500 years old.
Hidden within the ancient writings of sacred texts lies a world of mystery and wonder, stories that have echoed across the centuries, carrying the weight of divine wisdom. Among these revered works stands the Book of Daniel, a cornerstone of biblical prophecy. But tucked away within its pages is a lesser-known treasure often overshadowed by its more familiar tales, the enigmatic additions to Daniel. What secrets have been obscured by the sands of time? What deeper truths lie within the captivating tale of Bel and the dragon? Join us as we step into the shadows of history to uncover the mysteries hidden for millennia. Together, we'll explore the forgotten chapters that may hold keys to understanding prophecy, faith, and divine intervention. Are you ready to unlock the secrets of the past?
In these scrolls, we find biblical manuscripts, copies of the Bible that are 1,000 years older than any previously known copy of the Bible, as well as a treasure trove of documents that we had never seen before.
During the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, the powerful king of Babylon, marched into Jerusalem with his mighty army. He seized control of the city, fulfilling what many believed to be divine judgment. Sacred treasures from the temple of God were plundered, taken as spoils of war, and transported to Babylon, along with Jehoiakim himself. The devastation marked a turning point in Judah's history, as God, according to Scripture, allowed Babylon to dominate Judah as part of his greater plan. Once back in Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar ordered Ashpenaz, his chief official, to select young captives from Jerusalem's nobility. These youths had to meet strict criteria. They were to be without physical defects, possessing sharp intellects, and the wisdom to be molded into servants for the royal court. Among those chosen were 4 exceptional young men: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. These individuals would later prove their loyalty to God in the face of immense challenges. The young captives were enrolled in an intense 3-year training program designed to assimilate them into Babylonian culture. They were taught the Babylonian language, literature, and customs, ensuring they would be well equipped to serve the king. Their education was lavishly supported, as Nebuchadnezzar himself decreed that they were to be nourished with the finest food and wine from his table. This diet was intended to keep them strong and healthy, but it presented a moral dilemma for Daniel and his friends. Daniel resolved not to defile himself by partaking in the rich royal diet, which went against his religious beliefs. With humility and tact, he approached the palace steward, requesting permission to eat simpler food. Daniel's integrity had already earned him the steward's favor, but the official hesitated. He feared the king's wrath if Daniel and his companions appeared less robust than the other trainees. Daniel proposed a bold yet simple solution: a 10-day trial during which he and his friends would eat only vegetables and drink water. At the end of the period, their health would be compared to that of their peers. Reluctantly, the steward agreed. For 10 days, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah adhered to their modest diet. When the steward examined them afterward, he was astonished. The 4 young men appeared healthier and more vibrant than those who had indulged in the king's luxurious fare. Impressed by the results, the steward permitted them to continue their diet. As they thrived physically, God also blessed them with extraordinary intellectual and spiritual abilities. Their knowledge, wisdom, and understanding surpassed all expectations, setting them apart from their peers. Daniel, in particular, was given the rare gift of interpreting dreams and visions, which would prove invaluable in the years to come. When the 3 years of training ended, the young men were brought before King Nebuchadnezzar for evaluation. The king personally tested them, engaging them in discussions and challenging their intellect. None of the other trainees could compare to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Their wisdom and insight so impressed Nebuchadnezzar that they outshone even his most seasoned magicians and sorcerers. From that day forward, these 4 young men held high positions in the Babylonian court, earning the king's respect and admiration. Daniel's exceptional wisdom would allow him to serve faithfully through the reigns of multiple kings, including King Cyrus. In the 2nd year of his reign, King Nebuchadnezzar experienced a dream so vivid and disturbing that it left him sleepless and deeply troubled. Desperate for answers, he summoned his advisors, magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and Chaldeans, and demanded they interpret his dream. But there was a catch. He insisted that they first tell him what he had dreamt, then provide its meaning. The advisors were stunned by the impossibility of the task. "Tell us the dream, and we will interpret it," they begged. Nebuchadnezzar, however, suspected deceit and accused them of stalling for time. "If you cannot tell me the dream, you are conspiring to mislead me," he declared. He threatened them with execution if they failed, but promised rich rewards and honor if they succeeded. The Chaldeans pleaded again, insisting that no king had ever made such a request. "Only the gods could reveal such a thing," they said, "and they do not dwell among mortals." Their response only fueled Nebuchadnezzar's anger. Feeling betrayed, he ordered the execution of all the wise men in Babylon, a decree that included Daniel and his friends. When Daniel learned of the king's harsh command, he did not panic. Instead, he approached Arioch, the captain of the guard, with calm but urgent questions. "Why is the king's decree so severe?" he asked. Arioch explained the situation, and Daniel requested an audience with the king, promising to reveal both the dream and its interpretation if given time. Nebuchadnezzar granted his request. Returning home, Daniel shared the gravity of the situation with Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Together, they prayed fervently, asking God for mercy and wisdom to reveal the mystery. That night, God answered their prayers by granting Daniel a vision. When he awoke, Daniel's heart overflowed with gratitude. He praised God, saying, "You are the one who changes times and seasons, who raises up kings and brings them down. You reveal deep and hidden things, and wisdom belongs to you." With confidence, Daniel approached Arioch and said, "Take me to the king. I know the dream and its meaning." Brought before Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel humbly declared, "No wise man, magician, or sorcerer could ever do what you have asked. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown you, O king, what is to come." Daniel then recounted the dream in astonishing detail. "You saw a massive statue, brilliant and terrifying. Its head was made of gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet a mixture of iron and clay. Then a stone not cut by human hands struck the statue's feet, shattering them. The entire statue crumbled to dust, blown away by the wind, leaving no trace. But the stone grew into a mountain that filled the whole earth." As Nebuchadnezzar listened, Daniel explained the dream's meaning. "You, O king, are the head of gold, a mighty and glorious kingdom. After you, other kingdoms will rise, each inferior to the last. The silver represents the next kingdom, the bronze another, and the iron a kingdom of unmatched strength. The feet, a mix of iron and clay, symbolize a divided kingdom, partly strong and partly brittle. The stone that struck the statue represents a kingdom established by God, one that will never be destroyed. It will crush all other kingdoms and endure forever." Nebuchadnezzar was astonished by Daniel's accuracy and wisdom. Falling prostrate before him, the king acknowledged the greatness of Daniel's God, saying, "Surely your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and the revealer of mysteries. He rewarded Daniel with high honors, making him ruler over the entire province of Babylon and chief of all the wise men. At Daniel's request, the king also appointed Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah to prominent positions in the kingdom. Through these events, Daniel's unwavering faith and humility not only saved lives, but also demonstrated the sovereignty of God over all earthly kingdoms, a truth that would echo through the ages.
Police in Turkey have recovered a Bible thought to be 1,000 years old, the holy book which was found in the central Turkish city of Tokat.
The story of Daniel and his companions in Babylon is one of faith, courage, and the undeniable power of God. It begins with a dream that King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon had, which troubled him deeply. He summoned all his wise men, but none could interpret the dream, and the king's wrath grew. However, Daniel, a young Hebrew captive, was not only able to interpret the king's dream, but also revealed the divine significance behind it. The dream was a prophetic vision of kingdoms that would rise and fall, culminating in a kingdom established by God himself. In the dream, the king saw a statue made of various materials: gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay. The head of the statue was of gold, symbolizing the Babylonian Empire. Each part of the statue represented a different empire, with the feet of iron and clay signifying a divided and unstable kingdom that would eventually crumble. However, the most important aspect of the dream was the stone, cut not by human hands, which struck the statue and destroyed it, symbolizing God's eternal kingdom that would never fall. This kingdom would crush all others and stand forever, unshakable and eternal. Nebuchadnezzar, astonished by Daniel's ability to interpret the dream and reveal its profound meaning, was in awe. He fell to the ground in reverence, acknowledging the greatness of Daniel's God. He proclaimed that Daniel's God was truly the God of gods and the Lord of kings, for no one else could have revealed such a truth. In gratitude and admiration, the king showered Daniel with rewards and elevated him to a high position within the kingdom. Daniel was appointed as governor of Babylon and chief of all the wise men, a position of great honor. Daniel, in turn, requested that his 3 companions, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, be given important positions as well, which they received, and the 4 young men stood firmly in the royal court, trusted and favored by the king. However, their faith was soon tested in a way that would showcase their unwavering trust in God. A great trial occurred when the king ordered the construction of a golden image, demanding that all people in the kingdom bow down and worship it. Anyone who refused to worship the image would be thrown into a fiery furnace. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, loyal to their God, refused to bow down to the image. Their disobedience enraged King Nebuchadnezzar, who ordered them to be cast into the furnace. The flames of the furnace were so intense that even the soldiers who threw the 3 young men into the fire were consumed by the heat. Yet, to the astonishment of all, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah stood unharmed in the heart of the furnace, surrounded by an angel who shielded them from the flames. As the fire burned fiercely around them, the young men began to sing praises to God, declaring his greatness and eternal glory. Azariah, one of the 3, prayed aloud, acknowledging the justice of God's judgments and confessing the sins of the people. He reminded God of the promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and asked for mercy. Even though they had no temple or sacrifices to offer, Azariah and his companions offered their hearts in worship, humbling themselves before the Lord. Their faith was not in outward symbols, but in the sincerity of their devotion. They declared, "We have no rams or bulls to give, but we offer our devotion. Let it be pleasing to you, Lord." As their voices rang out in worship, the fire lost its destructive power. The heat that was meant to destroy them was replaced with a cool, gentle breeze. Their faith turned the furnace into a sanctuary of peace. Together they praised God, saying, Blessed are you, Lord God of our ancestors. Your name is holy, and your glory fills the heavens. They called on all of creation, the sun, the moon, the stars, the winds, the rain, the mountains, and the rivers, to join them in praising the Lord. Their song became a universal call to honor the Creator, declaring that His mercy endures forever. The miracle of the 3 young men in the fiery furnace did not only serve as a testimony to their faith, but also revealed God's power and mercy to the entire kingdom. The king, witnessing this incredible event, was overwhelmed by the glory of God. He declared that no one should speak against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, for He was the only true God who could deliver His servants from the fire. The king promoted the 3 men to even higher positions in the kingdom, recognizing the greatness of their God. But this was not the end of Daniel's story in Babylon. The narrative shifts to the story of Susanna, a woman of great beauty and righteousness who lived in Babylon. Susanna was the wife of Joachim, a wealthy and influential man. She was well known among the Jewish community for her faith and piety. However, 2 corrupt elders who were appointed as judges became infatuated with her. They began to devise a plan to exploit their power for their own lustful desires. One day, while Susanna was bathing in her garden, the 2 elders, hiding among the trees, seized the opportunity to approach her. They threatened to falsely accuse her of adultery if she did not submit to their advances. Susanna was left in a desperate situation, knowing that if she resisted, her reputation would be ruined. Yet she did not compromise her integrity. Instead, she cried out to God for help, trusting in His justice. The elders' plot was uncovered when Daniel, at a young age, came forward and challenged their lies. He questioned them separately, revealing their contradictory statements. The elders were ultimately exposed, and Susanna was vindicated. The story of Daniel, his 3 companions, and Susanna illustrates not only the faith and courage of individuals standing firm in the face of adversity, but also the power of God to protect, deliver, and uphold justice. Through the trials of the fiery furnace and the wrongful accusation of Susanna, God demonstrated His eternal sovereignty and His unwavering commitment to those who trust in Him. Their stories remind us that even in the most perilous circumstances, God is with us, offering His protection, guidance, and mercy. Whether facing the flames of persecution or the schemes of the wicked, the faithful can stand firm, knowing that God's kingdom is everlasting and His justice will ultimately prevail.
Israeli archaeologists working to prevent caves in the area from being looted filmed the moment of their discovery. They'd found ancient verses from the books of the prophets Zechariah and Nahum in the Hebrew Bible.
In the heart of the city, Susanna found herself facing an impossible choice, one that could cost her everything. Her faith, her honor, and her life all hung in the balance. The elders' accusations, though baseless and false, were relentless, and the decision before her weighed heavily. To yield would mean betraying everything she held dear, her faith, her God, and the sacred honor she had worked her entire life to uphold. Yet, to refuse could cost her life. Her voice trembled, but it was resolute as she spoke. "I will not sin against the Lord, even if it costs me everything." The elders, emboldened by their false piety, seized their opportunity. One of them dashed to the garden door, flinging it open with a dramatic flourish. His actions were not just a physical gesture, they were designed to create a spectacle, to add credibility to their lies. As the commotion echoed through the courtyard, Joachim's servants hurried into the scene, their faces filled with alarm at the cries of Susanna. Without hesitation, the 2 elders launched into their accusation, pointing their accusing fingers at Susanna as though their words were gospel truth. "We caught her in the act!" they shouted in unison, their voices filled with malicious triumph. "She was here with a young man, who fled when we approached." The servants, familiar with Susanna's virtuous reputation, looked at each other baffled. How could such a woman, known for her grace and purity, possibly be guilty of such a heinous act. But the elders' words carried weight. They were respected members of the community, and their accusations stirred suspicion among the onlookers. The next day, the community gathered to hear the charges brought against Susanna. Joachim, her husband, stood at the center of the crowd, his face a mask of confusion and deep sorrow. His heart ached as the elders demanded that Susanna be brought before the assembly. Her family, her parents, children, and relatives stood by her side, their faces filled with shock and disbelief. The accusations against Susanna seemed utterly unfathomable, yet the elders pressed on. Susanna stood with quiet dignity in the midst of the assembly, her head held high, despite the storm of whispers and judgment swirling around her. Her heart raced, but her resolve was unshaken. The modesty and grace that had once been celebrated by all now made her the target of scorn and suspicion. The crowd looked on, murmurs of doubt and disbelief rippling through the air. Two elders, cloaked in false righteousness, stepped forward, their faces twisted with malice. "Uncover her face," they demanded, their voices cold and accusatory. The assembly complied, and Susanna's tear-streaked face was revealed for all to see. A collective gasp filled the air as the crowd looked upon her distressed expression. Many in the assembly were moved to tears by the sight of her suffering. The elders began their tale, their words carefully crafted to entangle Susanna in their web of lies. "While walking in the garden," they began, "we saw her meeting with a young man. They were embracing, and when we confronted them, the man fled in fear." Their words painted a picture of betrayal, but Susanna stood firm, her voice trembling but resolute. "I have done no such thing," she said, her eyes meeting the gazes of the crowd. "I have not sinned against the Lord." Yet, despite her words, the crowd's doubts grew, fueled by the testimony of the two elders. Their words carried heavy weight, and suspicion began to spread. Without any evidence to support the accusation, only the testimony of two men, Susanna was condemned to death. The verdict fell like a hammer, sealing her fate. As the sentence was about to be carried out, Susanna lifted her face to the heavens. "O eternal God," she cried out, her voice breaking with anguish. "You know everything. You see their wickedness and their lies. Do not let me die for a crime I did not commit." Her plea was desperate, but it carried a deep trust in the justice of her God, and the Lord heard her cry. Just as the execution was about to take place, a young man stepped forward, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "I will not allow this injustice," Daniel declared, his words strong and unwavering. The people turned to him in surprise. Who was this young man, and why did he speak with such boldness? Daniel stood tall, his gaze sweeping over the assembly. "Are you all so quick to condemn an innocent woman without a proper investigation?" he asked. "Return to the place of judgment and let this matter be re-examined. Justice cannot rest on lies." The crowd, moved by Daniel's courage and wisdom, agreed to his request. Back at the place of judgment, Daniel commanded that the two elders be separated for questioning. He first turned to the first elder and asked, "If you truly saw Susanna with a man, tell me, under which tree did you see them?" The elder, confident in his lie, replied quickly, "Under the mastic tree." Daniel fixed him with a piercing stare, his voice steady as he spoke. "You have lied," he declared. "The angel of God has received his command to cut you in two." Turning to the second elder, Daniel asked the same question. The elder hesitated, but finally responded, "Under a large oak tree." Daniel's expression hardened. "You too have lied," he said, his voice grave. "The angel of God waits to strike you down for your deceit." At this, the crowd erupted in outrage, realizing that the elders, once respected members of the community, had been exposed as liars and manipulators. The truth was now revealed. and with it came the weight of justice. The crowd praised God for his intervention, for he had heard the cries of the innocent and had vindicated her. Following the laws of Moses, the punishment that the elders had intended for Susanna was turned back upon them. They were put to death, a stark reminder of the consequences of bearing false witness. As for Daniel, his wisdom and courage in standing up for the truth became the talk of the city. People admired the young man who had dared to challenge the elders, whose lies had threatened an innocent life. His reputation as a man of God, a defender of the innocent, grew, and he became a beacon of hope and righteousness in a world clouded by corruption and injustice. Long ago, in the days when empires rose and fell, and when faith was tested by fire, Daniel had taken a stand that would echo through the ages. His story would become a powerful reminder of the importance of integrity, courage, and the unwavering belief that God sees all things, even the secrets hidden in the hearts of men. After the death of King Ahasuerus, Cyrus of Persia ascended to the throne, inheriting the mighty kingdom of Babylon. Among his advisors, none was more esteemed than Daniel, whose wisdom, integrity, and unwavering faith in the living God set him apart from the rest. At this time, the people of Babylon worshipped a grand idol named Bel, a god revered by many, including King Cyrus. The idol was the centerpiece of their devotion, and its temple was filled daily with extravagant offerings: 12 measures of fine flour, 40 sheep, and 6 vessels of wine. Even King Cyrus, despite his wisdom, bowed before Bel, believing it to be a living god. But Daniel, true to his faith, refused to follow the crowd. When the king questioned him about his refusal to worship Bel, Daniel spoke plainly, his voice steady with conviction. "Your Majesty," he said, "I cannot worship something crafted by human hands. I serve the living God, the creator of heaven and earth, who rules over all life." The king, intrigued but skeptical, challenged Daniel. "Do you mean to say that Bel is not alive? Look at the offerings it receives daily. Surely only a living God could consume so much." Daniel smiled, unfazed by the king's challenge. "Do not be deceived by appearances, Your Majesty. Bel is nothing but clay and brass. It neither eats nor drinks. The offerings are consumed by men, not gods." Frustrated by Daniel's words, the king summoned Bel's priests to defend the idol's honor. "Tell me," he demanded, "who consumes the food placed before Bel? If you cannot prove that it is Bel, you will die. But if Bel truly eats the offerings, Daniel will pay for his blasphemy." The priests, confident in their scheme, assured the king of Bel's divinity. They proposed a test. The king would prepare a feast for Bel, seal the temple door with his royal signet, and return the next day to witness the offerings gone, proof of Bel's power. The king agreed, and Daniel, ever the wise and faithful servant, had his own plan. Before the priests left, Daniel instructed the king to allow his servants to scatter ashes across the floor of the temple. The king consented, and the task was completed. Once the temple was sealed with the royal seal, the priests departed, confident that their scheme would soon prove Bel's power. That night, as the city slept, the priests crept into the temple through a secret passage beneath the altar, bringing their families with them. They devoured the food and drank the wine, leaving the table empty for the king's inspection the next day. At dawn, Cyrus and Daniel returned to the temple. The king, eager to see the evidence of Bel's power, examined the seals on the temple door and found them intact. Overjoyed, he opened the door, expecting to witness the table bare, proof of Bel's divine nature. But Daniel stopped him. "Wait, Your Majesty," Daniel said. "Before you enter, look closely at the floor." The king's eyes fell on the scattered ashes, which now bore the imprints of the priest's footsteps, revealing the truth. The god Bel had consumed nothing. It was the priests, not the idol, who had devoured the offerings. Cyrus, realizing he had been deceived, turned to Daniel in astonishment. Through Daniel's wisdom, the truth had been revealed, and the false god was exposed for what it truly was. The priests who had conspired against Daniel were punished, and Daniel's reputation continued to grow, solidifying his place as a man of God, a beacon of truth in a world shrouded in darkness. From that day forward, Daniel's wisdom became legendary, his courage a shining example of unwavering faith and righteousness, and the story of how he stood against the lies of the elders and the deceit of the priests would echo through the ages as a testament to the power of truth and the protection of God's faithful servants.
Cuneiform tablets, ancient Mesopotamian clay tablets, clay bullae, and seal impressions. This is just a fraction of the artifacts that were stolen from archaeological sites in Iraq and smuggled into the United States.
In the heart of ancient Babylon, under the rule of King Cyrus, a series of extraordinary events unfolded, which would challenge the power of idols and reveal the unwavering faith of a man named Daniel. These events not only tested the strength of Daniel's belief, but also exposed the fragility of the idols that had been revered by the people of Babylon for generations. As the story progressed, Daniel's steadfast devotion to the living God led to miraculous interventions that would forever alter the course of history, leaving an indelible mark on the kingdom and its people. The drama began one fateful night when King Cyrus, curious about the reverence that Babylon's priests held for the idol of Bel, decided to observe their practices. Seated in his chambers, the king was unaware that the priests were preparing for a ritual of deception. Through a secret passage beneath the altar of the temple, the priests and their families crept into the sanctuary, carrying with them provisions of food and wine. They ate and drank at the table set for the gods, leaving behind an empty space, as though the idol itself had partaken in the feast. The following morning, Cyrus, accompanied by Daniel, entered the temple to inspect the seals on the doors. To the king's surprise, the seals were intact. Overjoyed at the apparent safety of the temple, Cyrus opened the doors, expecting to see a divine sight. Instead, he found the table barren, devoid of any trace of the sacred meal. Upon this discovery, the king marveled at the emptiness before him, praising the idol of Bel for its power. But Daniel, ever vigilant, stopped the king from proceeding. "Wait, Your Majesty," Daniel urged. "Look closely at the floor." The king, puzzled, peered down, and there, in the ashes, were unmistakable footprints. The marks told a story, the tracks of men, women, and children who had entered the temple under the cover of darkness. Realization dawned on the king, and his face darkened with anger. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice booming through the halls. The priests were summoned to explain their actions. Faced with the undeniable evidence, they confessed their deceit, admitting to having used the temple for their own indulgence. The king, filled with rage at their betrayal, ordered their execution and the destruction of their families. The secret passage was sealed, and the priests' treachery was laid bare for all to see. With the priests punished, King Cyrus turned his attention to the idol itself. "Bel is yours to do with as you please," he said to Daniel, granting him permission to act as he saw fit. Daniel, ever resolute, wasted no time in commanding the idol to be dismantled. The temple, once revered as a holy site, was razed to the ground, ensuring that no trace of its falsehood would remain in Babylon. But even as the idols fell, a greater challenge awaited Daniel. In the city of Babylon, there was a fearsome creature that the people believed to be a living god, a dragon of immense size and power. The dragon was revered, feared, and treated as a divine being. It ate and drank as though alive, captivating the people with its terrifying presence. King Cyrus, curious about Daniel's unshakable faith, turned to him with a challenge. "Surely you must believe in the divinity of this dragon," the king said, expecting Daniel to bow before the mighty creature. Daniel, however, remained unyielding. "I do not worship idols or creatures, no matter how grand," he replied calmly. "Let me prove to you that this dragon is no god at all." Intrigued by Daniel's confidence, the king allowed him to proceed with his challenge. Daniel devised a clever plan to expose the falseness of the dragon. He mixed pitch, fat, and hair into heavy lumps and fed them to the beast. The concoction was deadly, and soon after consuming it, the dragon exploded, destroyed from within. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Daniel stood before them and declared, "This dragon is no god. The true God is the living creator of all things, the one who rules over heaven and earth." Despite the proof before their eyes, the people of Babylon were not easily swayed. Enraged by the destruction of their beloved idol, they turned their fury upon the king. Whispers of rebellion began to spread throughout the city as the people accused the king of betraying their gods. Having witnessed the fall of the idol Bel and the destruction of their revered dragon, the people demanded justice. Overcome by the growing unrest, King Cyrus reluctantly handed Daniel over to the mob. He was thrown into a den of ravenous lions, a pit designed for execution and despair. The den contained 7 fierce lions, which were fed daily with carcasses to keep them satisfied. For 6 long days, Daniel remained in the den, but to the astonishment of all, the lions did not harm him. They circled him, but their hunger was not directed at him. Meanwhile, far away, the prophet Habakkuk was preparing food for workers in the fields when an angel of the Lord appeared before him. The angel grasped Habakkuk by the hair and, in an instant, transported him to Babylon. Habakkuk found himself standing before the lion's den, where he called out to Daniel. "Daniel, God has sent you this meal," he cried, overwhelmed by the miraculous intervention. Daniel, filled with gratitude, gave thanks to God. "You have not forgotten me, O Lord. You are faithful to those who love and seek you," he said, as he ate the meal provided by the angel. The lions, whose natural instinct was to devour, remained docile, offering no harm. After delivering the meal, the angel swiftly returned Habakkuk to his fields, just as suddenly as he had come. On the 7th day, King Cyrus, fearing the worst, went to the den to mourn for Daniel. Expecting to find only the remains of the prophet, the king was astonished to find Daniel alive and unharmed, sitting among the lions. "Truly, Daniel's God is the living God," the king exclaimed in amazement. "There is no one like him." Moved by this miraculous deliverance, the king ordered Daniel to be lifted out of the den. As for those who had plotted against him, they were thrown into the pit in his place, where the lions devoured them instantly. The story of Daniel's encounter with the dragon and his miraculous deliverance from the lion's den serves as a powerful testament to God's ability to protect his faithful servants, even in the face of certain death. These tales of Susanna, the destruction of Bel, the dragon, and Daniel in the lion's den illustrate the triumph of truth over falsehood and the unwavering power of faith in the living God. They reveal how, through divine intervention, God's justice prevails, and how even in the darkest moments, his faithful servants are delivered. These stories invite us to reflect on our own faith and the unshakable trust we place in God's ability to guide, protect, and vindicate his followers. The miraculous events that unfolded in Babylon serve as a powerful reminder that, no matter the obstacles or dangers we face, the living God is always with us, working on our behalf to ensure that truth prevails. The Book of Enoch has been a subject of much controversy and intrigue, largely due to its esoteric content and its role in early religious history. This ancient text was discovered in Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia, in 1773 by Scottish explorer James Bruce. However, the story behind its origin, its exclusion from the Bible, and the powerful ideas it presents have made it a polarizing topic, especially among scholars and religious figures. One modern figure who has brought the Book of Enoch into contemporary conversations is Joe Rogan, the popular podcaster known for his deep dives into alternative histories, politics, and religion. The Book of Enoch, often referred to as the Ethiopic Book of Enoch, is part of a collection of writings known as pseudepigrapha. These are works falsely attributed to prominent biblical figures to lend them credibility. In the case of the Book of Enoch, it is attributed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah, but the text was written long after Enoch's death. Scholars believe this pseudepigraphical attribution was meant to give the text more authority. Rogan and others believe that this ancient book contains essential truths that have been suppressed by political and religious institutions over the centuries. The Book of Enoch is part of a broader genre of Jewish apocalyptic literature that includes other works like the Life of Adam and Eve, the Treatise of Shem, and the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs. These texts provide a glimpse into the diversity of religious thought during the Second Temple period in Palestine, a time when various forms of Judaism coexisted and gave rise to apocalyptic movements that would eventually influence Christianity. The Book of Enoch, in particular, sheds light on ancient Jewish beliefs about angels, the origins of evil, and the coming judgment. The Book of Enoch was largely lost to history until its rediscovery in the late 18th century. Scottish explorer James Bruce is credited with bringing the text back to Europe after obtaining it during his travels in Ethiopia. Bruce, an adventurer and scholar, was in search of the Blue Nile, but his interests extended beyond geography. He was also fascinated by ancient cultures and religious texts. During his time in Abyssinia, Bruce encountered the ancient Ethiopian language of Ge'ez, which preserved the Book of Enoch in its entirety. This language, which had roots in early Christianity, became the vehicle through which Bruce brought the text to the Western world. Bruce's motives for seeking the Book of Enoch were not purely academic. He was a member of the Canongate Kilwinning Masonic Lodge, and some historians believe that his interest in the book was tied to his Masonic beliefs. Freemasons held that Enoch was the founder of the written language, and they regarded him as a keeper of hidden knowledge. By uncovering the Book of Enoch, Bruce may have hoped to validate these beliefs and uncover ancient secrets that aligned with Masonic traditions. The Book of Enoch contains a unique narrative that differs from the traditional Judeo-Christian accounts of the origins of evil and the role of the devil. In the canonical Bible, the devil is portrayed as the ultimate antagonist, the embodiment of evil who tempts humanity away from God. However, the Book of Enoch presents a more complex story. According to this text, the angels who descended from heaven to teach humanity, known as the Watchers, were the original bringers of knowledge and wisdom. They were led by a figure named Azazel, who is often equated with the devil. The Watchers taught humans everything from agriculture to weapon making, and while this knowledge brought progress, it also led to the corruption of humanity. This narrative implies that the source of human wisdom and culture came from these fallen angels rather than from God. This radical idea posed a direct challenge to the traditional religious authority of the time, which portrayed God as the ultimate source of wisdom and goodness. As a result, the Book of Enoch was excluded from the official canon of both Jewish and Christian scriptures. The Book of Enoch's depiction of the devil and the origins of evil was highly controversial and likely contributed to its suppression. In the religious and social climate of the time, the idea that the devil could have once been humanity's ally was considered heretical. The early church fathers denounced the book, and it was eventually lost to history, surviving only in fragments in various languages such as Greek, Latin, and Syriac. It wasn't until the 18th century, with Bruce's discovery in Ethiopia, that the book resurfaced in its entirety. This rediscovery, however, did not immediately lead to widespread acceptance. The implications of the Book of Enoch were too radical for the religious authorities of Bruce's time. The book suggested that humanity's progress and creativity were not divinely inspired, but rather the result of the knowledge imparted by rebellious angels. This notion undermined the authority of the Church and the idea that divine wisdom was the sole guiding force in human history. The Book of Enoch remained a relatively obscure text until the mid-20th century, when it was rediscovered once again, this time among the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Judean desert in 1946. This discovery reignited scholarly interest in the book and led to a renewed examination of its historical and theological significance. Some scholars argue that the Book of Enoch provides valuable insight into the diversity of early Jewish and Christian beliefs, particularly in relation to the origins of evil and the role of angels in human affairs. In recent years, Joe Rogan has brought the Book of Enoch into the public spotlight, discussing it on his podcast with various scientists, historians, and religious scholars. Rogan is fascinated by the book's portrayal of ancient knowledge and its ties to human progress. He argues that the Book of Enoch contains essential truths that have been buried by centuries of political and religious power struggles. According to Rogan, the suppression of the Book of Enoch is indicative of a broader effort to control the narrative of human history and limit the spread of certain knowledge. Rogan's endorsement of the Book of Enoch has sparked renewed interest in the text, particularly among those who are skeptical of traditional religious institutions. He views the book as a key to understanding humanity's forgotten past and its relationship with higher powers, whether divine or otherwise. His discussions on the topic have generated controversy, with some applauding his willingness to explore alternative histories, while others criticize him for giving credence to pseudepigraphical works that challenge established religious doctrines. The Book of Enoch remains a fascinating and controversial text that continues to captivate scholars, religious figures, and modern commentators like Joe Rogan. Its narrative challenges traditional Judeo-Christian beliefs about the origins of evil, the role of the devil, and the source of human knowledge. Rediscovered in both the 18th and 20th centuries, the Book of Enoch provides a unique window into the diverse religious thought of ancient times and raises important questions about the intersection of religion, power, and knowledge. Whether viewed as a heretical text or a lost piece of ancient wisdom, the Book of Enoch continues to inspire debate and curiosity in those who seek to understand the mysteries of the past.
Police in Turkey have recovered a Bible thought to be 1,000 years old, the holy book which was found in the central Turkish city of Tokat.
The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 is one of the most significant archaeological finds of the 20th century. A group of young Bedouin boys, tending their sheep near the caves in Qumran on the northwest coast of the Dead Sea, now known as the West Bank, stumbled upon the scrolls by accident. When one boy threw a rock into a cave opening, he heard the unexpected sound of pottery breaking. Out of curiosity, the boys entered the cave and discovered several large clay jars, 7 of which contained leather and papyrus scrolls. These ancient scrolls, eventually repurchased by scholars and antiquities merchants, were found to be over 2,000 years old, sparking a surge of interest among historians and religious scholars alike. One of the scrolls unearthed was the Book of Enoch, a text that has sparked centuries of debate and speculation. Many clerical scholars dismissed it, arguing that the revelations it contained were not divinely inspired. The Book of Enoch was excluded from the traditional Bible, though it had been held in high regard by certain Jewish sects, particularly in the Second Temple period. The rejection of the text by later religious authorities is often attributed to the controversial and profound revelations it contains, dealing with the creation of the world, fallen angels, giants, and cosmological mysteries. The Book of Enoch, particularly its descriptions of angels, giants, and apocalyptic visions, is believed to reflect elements of Babylonian mythology. Some scholars argue that Enoch's story is a compilation of various works, many of which are apocryphal. Yet the text continues to fascinate modern readers, including public figures like Joe Rogan, who have expressed skepticism about why it was dismissed by religious authorities. Rogan has argued that despite the mythical elements within the book, it also contains insights into many of the scientific mysteries of the world. This has led some to question whether its exclusion from the Bible was justified. The figure of Enoch, who is credited as the author of the book, holds a unique place in religious tradition. In the book of Genesis, Enoch is described as the seventh patriarch in the line of Adam, living in the period between the Garden of Eden and the Great Flood. He is portrayed as a righteous man who walked with God, eventually being taken to heaven without dying. According to the Book of Enoch, he is given a divine mission to learn the secrets of the end of time. Some interpret this as Enoch being a forerunner of the Messiah, while others view him as a man who was granted heavenly knowledge. In any case, the story paints Enoch as a figure who transcends his mortal life, learning and revealing cosmic truths. The Book of Enoch opens with a striking description of the end of times, painting a vivid picture of Earth being torn apart and a final judgment for sinful humanity. The text introduces a group of mysterious beings known as the Watchers, 200 angels originally tasked with observing the history of the world. However, the Watchers become corrupted when they begin to lust after human women, descending to Earth to take them as wives. This union between angels and humans produces the Nephilim, giant offspring who devour everything in their path. The Nephilim, often described as violent and destructive, may offer an explanation for biblical figures like Goliath, who are depicted as giants. Their origin story as a hybrid of divine beings and humans offers a unique twist on ancient tales of human interaction with the divine. As the giants rampage across the earth, consuming its resources, the Watchers also begin teaching their wives and the human population various forbidden skills. The women are taught spells, charms, and herbology, continuing a long-standing narrative of women as deceivers, echoing earlier biblical stories like that of Eve. Meanwhile, the Watchers impart knowledge of metallurgy to men, allowing them to create weapons and armor. This newfound power leads to widespread warfare among humans. As the chaos unfolds, the Watchers realize their mistake and, in an attempt to escape punishment, turn on one another, blaming a single Watcher named Azazel. Azazel, often depicted with goat-like features, becomes the archetypal scapegoat for the sins of the other Watchers. In response to the corruption, violence, and devastation caused by the Nephilim and the Watchers, God decides to wipe the slate clean by sending a flood to destroy humanity. The story of Noah and his ark closely follows this decision, and Noah is warned of the impending deluge. While Noah prepares for the flood, the plot suddenly shifts to Enoch, who is transported to heaven with little explanation. Once in heaven, God charges Enoch with the task of dealing out eternal punishment to the Watchers, who will be condemned to spend the rest of eternity as demons. God also reveals to Enoch a vision of the end of time, offering imagery that will later be familiar to readers of the biblical books of Daniel and Revelation. This vision includes scenes of cosmic destruction and the final judgment of humanity. Enoch, now empowered by God, is transformed into a mighty figure, even becoming the leader of the archangels under the name Metatron. This elevation of Enoch underscores the importance of his role in the divine plan, though the narrative remains somewhat disjointed, with Enoch's ascent to this position happening abruptly and without much explanation. One of the most compelling aspects of the Book of Enoch is its exploration of the Nephilim, giant, fallen beings who are the offspring of human women and the Watchers. The Nephilim are depicted as fearsome giants, capable of great destruction. Their size and supernatural nature have led to ongoing debates among scholars. Some argue that their immense stature is due to their divine origins, while others caution against taking these descriptions literally. The idea that angels or demons could father children with humans is a point of contention among religious scholars. with some seeing it as a mythological addition to the narrative rather than a theological truth. The Book of Enoch offers a unique and provocative interpretation of biblical history, filled with mystical visions, powerful beings, and a catastrophic judgment. While it remains outside the canon of the Bible, its influence is undeniable. Its stories of angels, giants, and the end of time continue to captivate readers, offering a glimpse into a world of ancient myths and mysteries that still resonate with us today.
Israeli archaeologists working to prevent caves in the area from being looted filmed the moment of their discovery. They'd found ancient verses from the books of the prophets Zechariah and Nahum in the Hebrew Bible.
The concept of the Nephilim is a fascinating topic of debate, with various interpretations about their origins. One theory suggests that the Nephilim were not supernatural beings, but simply humans who strayed from a righteous path. This idea aligns with the belief that the sons of God mentioned in the Bible were descendants of Seth, the son of Adam, who represented goodness. According to this theory, the Nephilim were members of Seth's lineage who turned away from God and led immoral lives. This interpretation contrasts with other theories that portray the Nephilim as more mystical beings. One significant source for discussions about the Nephilim and other celestial beings is the Book of Enoch, an ancient religious text divided into 5 sections: the Book of the Watchers, the Book of Parables, the Astronomical Book, the Dream Visions, and the Epistles of Enoch. This book contains a total of 100 chapters and provides in-depth accounts of angelic beings and their interactions with humanity, especially focusing on a group called the Watchers. The Book of the Watchers introduces these angelic figures as beings both referred to as sons of God and sons of heaven. In chapter 7, these Watchers, or the Grigori as they are sometimes known, are described as angels who were initially assigned to observe and guide the early humans. Their primary role was to watch over humanity without direct interference. However, their role as passive overseers would soon change as they became involved with human affairs in ways that had profound consequences. According to the Book of Enoch, as humans multiplied, the beauty of women became so captivating that it caught the attention of the Watchers. These sons of God were drawn to the daughters of men, finding them irresistible. They convened among themselves and decided to take human women as wives, violating their divine mandate. The leader of the Watchers, Samyaza, also known as Shemihaza, initially cautioned the group, warning them of the severe consequences of such an action. He feared that he alone would suffer for the crime against God. However, the other Watchers reassured him, agreeing to share responsibility and accept whatever punishment might follow. In total, 200 Watchers descended to Earth to pursue these relationships with women, directly disobeying divine orders. This act of rebellion not only involved forming unions with human women, but also imparting forbidden knowledge. The Watchers taught women various secrets, including sorcery, incantations, and the division of roots, which granted them powers not meant for mankind. By doing so, the Watchers not only defied God's will, but also corrupted human beings by sharing heavenly knowledge that was not intended for them. The offspring of these unions were known as the Nephilim, often described as giants. These beings were hybrids, a mixture of angelic and human traits, and their presence on Earth created chaos. While the nature of the Nephilim is still debated, their mention in Genesis 6:1-4 supports the view that they were giants, heroes of old, men of renown. According to the Book of Enoch, the Nephilim were initially mighty beings, but their enormous size and strength soon led to destructive behavior. They consumed the resources that humans had built, and when they could no longer be satisfied, they turned violent, killing both humans and, eventually, each other. Amidst this growing violence, Chapter 8 introduces another key figure, Azazel, one of the Watchers. He is said to have taught humanity the use of weapons such as swords and knives, instigating warfare. He also taught the use of metals and dyes, allowing humans to manipulate and alter their surroundings. As much as the Watchers divulged forbidden knowledge regarding the secrets of heaven, Azazel's teachings on warfare, weaponry, and other destructive practices greatly contributed to humanity's moral decline. His actions led to an increase in impiety, corruption, and fornication, further corrupting humanity. Other Watchers also contributed to this knowledge transfer, teaching astrology, science, and the mysteries of the heavens. These teachings, coupled with the unchecked presence of the Nephilim, led to humanity's near destruction. Men's cries of despair reached heaven, prompting divine intervention. In chapter 9, 4 prominent archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, observe the chaos unfolding on earth. Disturbed by what they see, they go before God to express their concerns. They place the blame squarely on Azazel for spreading iniquity and revealing divine secrets to humanity. They also point to Samyaza, accusing him of teaching sorcery and being responsible for leading the Watchers in their rebellion and copulating with human women, producing the Nephilim. Faced with this grave situation, the archangels ask God how they should proceed to restore order to the earth. In chapter 10, God responds by giving specific instructions to the archangels. Uriel is tasked with finding Noah, the son of Lamech, and informing him about the impending flood that will cleanse the earth of all the corruption. Uriel explains to Noah how to survive the flood and emphasizes that Noah's descendants will be the only ones to repopulate the earth after the catastrophe. Meanwhile, Archangel Raphael is ordered to bind Azazel and cast him into the darkness, deep into the desert of Dudael, a place associated with the underworld. The Book of Parables, another section of the Book of Enoch, does not appear in the Dead Sea Scrolls and is unique to the tradition preserved by the Beta Israel community. It is speculated that this part of the book was carried south from Egypt to Cush and later included in their religious texts. This section offers further commentary on the fate of the Watchers, their transgressions, and the consequences of their actions. The Book of Enoch, especially the sections about the Watchers and Nephilim, has captured the imagination of scholars and theologians for centuries. Some have speculated that the Watchers could be ancient depictions of extraterrestrial beings, leading to modern-day theories about alien encounters. Regardless of how the text is interpreted, the stories within the Book of Enoch offer a unique perspective on angelic beings, their relationship with humanity, and the consequences of straying from divine law.